Hello. I realized I recorded a video on Friday and then I forgot to post it. And then I went back to post it today and I was like, this video, I don't even know what I was talking about. So I don't know. If I get desperate enough to post a video, maybe I'll post it this week. But today, I hope everyone had a good weekend, by the way. But today, I want to talk about what restriction does to your thoughts when you're in recovery. And this video will be from me speaking from my own experience and from many clients at this point who I'll be working with, throughout their recovery. And within seconds, sometimes minutes, I can usually tell if that person has had a good week or a not so good week. I can tell if they've been restricting either intentionally or unintentionally because their entire demeanor is different. Their energy is different. The way that they're speaking is there's so much more doubt and fear, right? In the things that they're saying. And when someone gets on and they've had an amazing week and they're having these breakthroughs and they're feeling like their brain is changing, oh my gosh, they're like pumped to talk to me and they're excited and they sorry, I thought I had something in my teeth. It's almost like they're unstoppable, right? And almost never, very rarely do I ask like, so what did you eat today? Or what have you been eating? Like, I don't need to ask that. I can usually just tell, right? And so what happens when you restrict and fall into a deficit, whether it's matter of days, hours, your brain kind of switches. It's like a switch that goes on and off, on and off. When you're not restricting and you're eating totally unrestrictedly and you're listening to all your extreme hunger, you may have anxiety, but that switch of doubt and fear and overwhelm and all of that kind of gets shut off. And though you might have this exciting anxiety kind of feeling going on, you are able to continue moving forward because you feel hopeful and motivated and excited and like things are changing. But when you're restricting, it's amazing what happens to your thoughts. They become, the way that I could describe it for me, and I learned in recovery actually how to detect if I was, where I thought maybe I was eating enough and then all of a sudden I had a day where the thoughts were just like crazy. I learned hey, you know what? Food is my medicine for that. Just like if I had a headache, I would take Advil, right? If I have a headache, Advil's very effective for me. If I just take Advil, I can expect in 20, 30 minutes that headache is gone. Think of it the same as if I've got a head or a brain that's just going around and around and around with intrusive thoughts and just filling me with doubt and fear, and essentially all of these thoughts are making me want to run fast, far away from recovery, I need to take my medicine, food. I need to eat food. And when you do that, you'll be amazed how effective that can be to help with that anxiety. But not just any food and not just any amount of food. If you choose something safe or you choose to not have enough of something that you really want, that in fact is not going to help so much with the anxiety because you're really not serving anyone at that point. You're not serving your eating disorder brain, you're not serving your recovery brain, and it's total and utter chaos in your brain. But if you're having the thoughts that you're just oh man, I'm getting in a bad headspace, and you eat exactly what you want and as much of it as you want, whose team are you playing for now? Your recovery team, right? You're back on the wagon. You're going. You're playing for the team that you signed up for, which is recovery, and that's a wonderful thing, right? You might still have anxiety, but it's this excitement and filled with hope anxiety. And so when you start restricting, your brain kind of starts to feel doubtful, and it starts to kind of almost in some ways paint this not so awful picture of what your eating disorder was before you started recovery. Starts to see it through rose-colored glasses, and it starts to, you start to question, why are you even doing recovery? Is it really that bad? Is it really that bad? Is it worse than what you're experiencing now? And oftentimes you can say, no, actually it wasn't. Recovery is way worse. It's way harder. I'm way more uncomfortable in recovery than I was when I was just listening to my eating disorder. And I don't doubt that. I actually believe that that can be the case at times in recovery. And especially, again, if you haven't fully surrendered, if you haven't fully committed, I believe, yes, there can be moments in recovery where choosing to go back to your eating disorder and just live this life, even though it was very, for me, very bland and unfulfilling. There was a certainty in it. I knew what to expect. I didn't have high expectations when I was living in that eating disorder world, right? And so it's easy to want to just go back to that because it's just the easier thing and you'll feel safer there. But is it the better thing, right? And so when you're in those periods where it's getting really, really hard, the last thing you really want to do is just go out and get a cheeseburger. It's the last thing you want to do, but it's the most important thing that you do that. I would always say on the most awful body image days, and I really did do this in my own recovery, on the most awful body image days, I was like, all right, I have to obliterate that eating disorder today because, oh my gosh, I just woke up with a head full of crud going on, right? Just like debilitating fear, awful, horrible regret. What have I done? Oh my gosh. And it was just like, if I didn't act fast, it was going to completely take over. Like I felt like I didn't stand a chance. And so that's where I had to make up my mind and be like, okay, today has to be the most aggressive day I've had so far, right? It has to be the most bold day. And guess what? I came out on top. At the end of the day, I was like, even on the day that I felt the most uncomfortable in my skin, I did all these things. Wow, right? And I knew I wanted to recover, so there was something to celebrate. It was like, I'm getting closer to that, and I know my brain is changing, so this is exciting. I can focus my energy on that instead of focus on the fact that my pants don't fit me anymore, okay? But again, if you wake up on a horrible body image day and all you want to do is restrict and go for that walk, and you don't go for the walk and you don't fully restrict, but you do try to do lower level movement and you do, pick safer things and not eat quite as much as you really wanted to, you're not going to have that same feeling at the end of the day, okay? And so restriction has this way of like completely warping everything that's important to you, all of your values, everything you're working for, and making it just really not that big of a deal. It's just not that important. Is recovery even worth all its hype? My eating disorder wasn't that bad. Did I even have an eating disorder? Was it even that bad? Am I making a big deal out of nothing? All of these thoughts would just consume me and made it so tempting to run back. So tempting to just let that restriction just kind of run its course, and then, hopefully one day I'd wake up and be able to do it. And so if that's you and you're feeling like that, man, I've been in a negative mindset lately, or man, I've had this doubt consuming me, I want you to, instead of trying to like work out or ask more questions about what you should do in recovery, I really want you to just pause and be like, what have my actions been? What have my actions been? And this is where you have to develop an incredibly powerful tool. You have to learn how to separate your emotions from your eating and your resting. Your emotions from your commitments are going to be two separate things. So you can have a gamut of really cruddy emotions, and in the past those cruddy emotions would elicit eating disorder behaviors, but now we have to develop this tool of having all the cruddy emotions, recognizing them, and being like, different path. Now we're doing recovery behaviors. Now we're following through with our commitments when all these things come up. Because on a rose-colored, beautiful, sunny day, when everything's going your way, maybe you can eat unrestrictedly. How often does that actually happen days like that, though? Very, very rarely. And so you have to be able to do this with any and all emotions. You have to be able to eat through them. And when you do that and you change your reaction from what it's been to what you want it to now be, right, which is unrestricted and eventually free, that's when you rewire your brain. And so I always say, on the hardest days and on the days when maybe you found yourself in a restrictive state, maybe it's been days of a restrictive state, months, years, you have to change how you're responding to that. And you have to stop listening to the thoughts that are generating these terrible emotions that don't feel good. And you have to do the opposite with your actions, okay? I know it seems safe and cozy and comfy just to run back into the arms of your eating disorder to feel that relief when you feel like you're not good enough or you're not doing enough or whatever, but it doesn't pay off. It's putting a Band-Aid on something, right? And it keeps getting infected and you put another Band-Aid. It's just like, I'm getting a little poetic here, but heal the wound. Like truly stop putting band-aids on it and deal with what's going on, right? And you do that by doing the thing you haven't wanted to do in a very long time. Just surrender. I was talking to a client earlier today and I loved, she shared with me, her parents bought her this cute little like buffalo decoration. And she reminded me of a video that I had done on buffaloes. And buffaloes, instead of running away from a storm and just continuing to run and the storm's following and chasing them, that tires them out, right? And the storm catches up with them. But if the storm is here and the buffalo runs straight into the storm, guess what? Who's smarter here? The buffalo is so smart. It just ran through the storm and then out the other side as the storm's going this way. And that's what you have to do in recovery. You have to be the buffalo. You have to run into the things that scare you the most. When you're in, especially when you're in that restrictive state and having those thoughts be generated that just make you want to do anything and everything other than eat unrestrictedly and rest, okay? So, restrictive behaviors lead to just really awful, defeating thoughts. That's the message of today. Very precise in saying it that way. It's just very straightforward. So if you find yourself in this tornado of awful, kind of demotivating, I just feel stuck thoughts, get yourself out of it. Not by reading more books or listening to more of my videos or asking more questions or talking to, your friend or spouse more about recovery. Get yourself out of it by just surrendering and going into the kitchen and saying, all right, extreme hunger, bring it on. Let's do this, okay? Get annoyed with the way that eating disorder is making you feel when you're trying to get your life back. Okay, have a good day. Bye.